Hello, everyone. It is Saturday, the 9th of November, 2024. So if you look at it, it could be seen as 11/9 or 9/11. And we do know that there are people within the Gematria groups that do seem to love those numbers. So we'll see if anything interesting happens today. I hope it doesn't, other than maybe fun stuff. I have people coming over later that I'm going to be hosting, and that will be fun. But other than that, no other events. Before I get into the World Economic Forum, I've talked about this organization at length for years, calling these people out and the connections they've had and the impact they've had internationally, and who funds them, who are the leaders that are part of the board. I talk about how much how much influence Canada has with WEF as well, and I don't think that people realize in Canada just how much and how many people within cabinet right now are still members of the World Economic Forum and under Klaus Schwab. And so I just wanted to get into a little bit of information before we even kick off to some of the videos. And I'm going to include one, of course, by Whitney Webb as well, because she's also someone that I would say is an independent journalist who has been incredibly well-versed in WEF, in Raytheon, like in so many different organizations and impact, influence on the world, not in a good way. So before I get into anything, I'll share this one first and then shut it down. Okay. So we have Jergen, who's actually Canadian, and he's really high up in the World Economic Forum. And not the only one. So we have here, obviously, Klaus Schwab, and where do we have it here? Because I'm going to give a few more names here. There we go. Some of the leaders the WEF espouses: Joe Biden, Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, Xi Jinping, Mario Draghi, Gavin Newsom, Anthony Fauci, Nancy Pelosi. Bill Gates, also someone that is a like a director, agenda contributor. Sorry, so he is a agenda contributor, and he has funded billions of dollars worth of investments and assets into WEF, and there's a reason for that. Okay, so these are very prominent leaders that were essentially, in my humble opinion, just following what WEF wanted them to follow, and they've also been heavily involved in tabletop operations, training exercises, simulations that seem to come true almost exactly as they were simulated, and sometimes in very short order afterwards. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, but just very interesting stuff. So what more can I say about Jeremy Jergen? Mark Carney, okay, who's going to be the next leader of the Liberal Party in Canada, which is the equivalent to the Democratic Party in the U.S. But Mark Carney also really high up on that board. I think he might be on the board of trustees. Don't quote me on that, or at least was. But anyways, a lot of influence in WEF, and Karina Gold, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, Chrystia Freeland, you name it. These are people that are obviously the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister that I'm talking about. Yeah, very interesting. So I'll shut that down. I do have a few interviews that he's done in the past few years. I'm not going to show the whole thing. This is just a few months ago, May 29th, 2024. And the title, because he's all about AI. That's also the very important thing as well. So is Gen AI the steam engine of the fourth industrial revolution? Jeremy Jergen's World Economic Forum.
All devices. And
they simulated a possible, they simulated cyber attacks. And in the simulation, it's about bank collapses, etc. They've been talking about this for years, which is why it's been on my whiteboard that I've left for almost 2 years now. Before that, I was doing whiteboards every few months. And yeah, and I've shared them all. But this is the predictions and naming WEF and others as well. And so this is not me just making predictions out of my ass. Like, these are people that are saying it and doing it, and or involved in organizations like AI and like the cyber community, digital ID, the CBDC stuff, like heavily involved in that aspect of WEF and Canadian.
A lot of the burden fell on those.
We're connected and linked to the Wuhan lab leak, and now this, right? And there's even more. what people think that Canada doesn't have any influence in the world, you are joking. Even look at the MK Ultra stuff. Look at Cameron out of Montreal, guys and girls, and even like the mob and the mafia. Yes, yeah, I'm not saying there's not like a huge influence and very powerful in the US, but I'm also saying that there are major hubs of certain high up friggin' mafia, mob types, cartel types, organizations that are in Canada, specifically in places like Montreal and in the Toronto area, Vancouver, and have had a presence there for generations.
Individuals and countries that didn't necessarily
have. And I'm gonna just keep on going with this, but it's just, this is the reason why people are not getting the actual facts and truth as close as they could be, because people are overlooking Canada in our involvement 100%. Even look at the fake and staged moon landings. Once that, shit show aired and everyone believed it, the astronauts that I like to call them, or astronauts, NOTS, they came to Canada, and it was on the second or third, but the 2nd of December, 1969, and then you've got the 201 in there, and it was Pierre Elliott Trudeau that was the prime minister at the time, and so he received them here, had a huge celebration for them just during an event or a day that some people within occult groups these people are affiliated with like to use when they're saying that something's actually fake within their own communities. Universal language or symbols is what they use because they can't use English. They can't outwardly say it or do it. But anyways, I think he was involved in the staged and fake moon landings, and that's Justin Trudeau, our current prime minister. That's his father. And so I believe it's generationally they've been lying to people, and also part of the club, and it's a shitty club.
Of a strong digital infrastructure.
There's a bunch of files that get involved in these groups as well. I'm not saying everyone, but yeah, and anyway.
Or strong digital capabilities. And so during this time, a group of companies came together and they said, look, what can we do to actually work in 3 specific areas here to help address some of these challenges that have been surfaced during COVID? And so they selected, education, health, and financial services.
Oh, man.
And so he said, we set what looked like an audacious goal at the time, said, what would it take to improve the lives of 1 billion citizens with digital technologies here? And each of these 3 domains. And so we kicked off the project. And since then, since we launched the Edison Project, we've actually been able to improve 784 million lives across 127 different countries via 320 different initiatives. And you can find out the details of all those different initiatives on a special website we set up, because we actually wanted to be able to share those examples so other people could replicate them, duplicate them, and take them forward. And as a result, we think we'll actually likely hit our target of 1 billion a couple of years ahead of schedule already later this fall. So that's one, I think, powerful example of using, in this case, not necessarily AI, but digital technologies in general.
Jeremy, what a great example of a global alliance of multi-stakeholder collaboration at its absolute best, not to mention the powerful impact of digitalization on inclusion. This really aligns as well with a great TED Talk that I listened to the other day with a couple of co-founders who started the Collective Intelligence Project. Both of them had come from Microsoft and Google DeepMind. Now they're working with countries like Taiwan and their Ministry of Digital Affairs, and working on processes across the country to pull together millions of citizens and understand what they want to see in terms of the AI future, and from that build shared public data. They've also pulled together the Collective Constitution Project with a partner in Anthropic, a tremendous generative AI company, and they've really built a foundation on principle-based AI training.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really important topic. I think maybe just one other example I might just provide on this aspect, and it's a little bit more abstract, but nonetheless the importance of bringing people together. If we look back a year ago, there's a pretty big debate as people start talking about AI, and maybe you remember, these signatures that started getting collected and saying, okay, let's put a freeze on all AI development for the next 6 months. Anything that might be more significant.
I'm going to share something regarding Anthropic that I just found. Obviously, I had to do like a little bit more research than that, but I'm just sharing it because I do sometimes live research. Anyways, Anthropic's Claude models to be used by U.S. intel agencies in major AI defense deal. And this is the Indian Express Journalism of Courage posted today. Interesting. What? Is that really today? Jesus, that's weird. I had no idea that, oh my God. The algorithms are really effective in this laptop of showing me my own echo chamber maybe. Anyway, Anthropic's Claude series of AI models will soon be used by U.S. intelligence and defense agencies as part of a deal that also involves data analytics firm Palantir. I was just going to say Palantir. Oh my God, because JD Vance is also connected to Palantir. And oh fuck, how do I forget his name? I've said his name like a billion times. Anyways, the guy that runs, that's so very interesting. And I was even saying this, I'm like, that's my, like, one of my biggest concerns is JD Vance, his connections with biometrics and human data mining, and his connections with the CIA, military intelligence, international intelligence agencies. Oh my fucking God, where even the CIA for like many years, I think 12 years or something, like that was his only client base. And and do we want to talk about the CIA throughout the generations? Oh my God, not even just Helms assisting and enabling an assassination of a fucking president, but also Vietnam and that shit show with a instability within multiple different countries, rape and torture, murder, you fucking name it, assassinations and assassination attempts, painting people as friggin' like extreme rightist or leftists, depending on who they wanted to impact or influence. Moon landings. Guys, girls. I don't necessarily think this is good. So much overreach. Amazon Web Services, like, holy shit, right? Most people I know have Amazon Prime. They get either they watch the TV, so they have the data there, or they are purchasing things. And anyway, we're proud to be the forefront of bringing responsible AI solutions to U.S. classified environments, enhancing analytical capabilities and operational efficiencies in vital government operations. So, you need less government, not more. And anyway, yeah, so it looks like our Jeremy Jergens from Canada is very heavily involved in assisting this international surveillance fucking scheme. Oh my God. Anyways, access to cloud within Palantir on AWS. Peter Thiel. Thanks. Oh my God. I'm saying thank you. I don't even know to who, because I didn't hear any voices. I'm not crazy. But anyways, Peter Thiel, also involved in this, obviously. Anyways, this is not good. Oh shit. Interesting. Okay. Just gonna share a little bit more of the interview, just because you're getting it from the horse's mouth, right? And apparently it's doing a lot more. It's doing better than anticipated too.
Than the Chat GPT at the time, and a lot of prominent individuals, went on there and signed that, including even some individuals that were in the process of developing their own AI technologies in parallel, or maybe even possibly trying to catch up or gain some time. And we always found that a bit odd because the onward progress, or is almost relentless on the technology. So you think it's really important. Okay, how do we guide that? How do we manage that? But it's a bit of a delusion to think, oh, okay, one group of people will kind of stop and then everything will just go on pause. But really, okay, how do we make sure that we actually work together to use these tools constructively and responsibly? And against that backdrop, we actually formed the AI Governance Alliance, where you've had the chance to participate with us, and we've had the engagement of Tech Nation, which has been also really important to us. And we brought together individuals that were very pro AI. Let's use it for everything, everywhere, no rules, no regulations. We brought together people that were deeply concerned about existential risks. We had closed model providers, open source model providers, large companies, small companies, established governments of very large countries, but also from emerging countries. And by actually putting these people in the room together and getting out of the kind of social media divisive debates, we actually found that people weren't so far apart. And actually, there was a lot that they could align around, right? In the future, we'll have a mix of both proprietary models and open source models. And this is okay. Yes, there are risks, but we can manage through those, and we can learn how we've handled other risks. So I think this is the importance of dialogue, of actually putting people together and actually working through those and not just taking one position where it is and then trying to force that down through regulation or other areas, but actually stepping back, having a dialogue, finding those connective things. So we can still disagree, but I think we'll often find through dialogue that there's...
Oh, it'll be 1984. No one will be able to disagree if they have their biometrics will be studied, including the biological responses like sweating or heart palpitations or so they're gonna know everything about you at all times, and they're gonna be able to essentially brainwash us or put us in these echo chambers that where to get the least amount of a response in us, making us numb, not able to think critically, et cetera. And these are all possibilities of what can happen, right? And yeah, George Orwell most certainly called it.
It's actually much more in common than there is there to divide us.
That is really great.
It'll be like North Korea almost. And every country is censored, by the way. I'm on a VPN and I do connect to different countries, like I've said before, because there's different things that are more censored within certain countries. And so that's a good way of just getting more information. So if there's one organization that is essentially in control of all of the data that humans are consuming, it's very easy to, again, push your own narrative or your own biases, even if you're thinking you're coming from a good place or not. And it's very dangerous. This is not how humans are supposed to develop and thrive. It's not. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And then even with the digital currency, if there's power outages or cyber attacks or banking collapses, people are, there's no backup. All right. And this causes societal and economic collapse, obviously. Yeah.
Insight, Jeremy, and I really...
But these people are in their own echo chambers, right? They're going to the same committees, they're going to the same meetings, they're talking to the same people in the same groups, and they're very out of touch with reality. They're very wealthy people, and their lifestyles are not even close to what ours are. So their biases and their interests and their hobbies and their values and their ethics, everything's different. And they're not seeing reality like the average person experiences it and sees it.
Appreciate what you're bringing to the table in terms of the importance of dialogue across, again, we're talking this multi-sector environment with the public, private sectors coming together, academia, to really get to some middle ground where we can all work together. And I want to kind of transition now to Canada and taking what we're talking about here, which is how do we leverage AI or harness AI and drive industrial transformation? It is going to come down to what we just heard from you, which is this very important dialogue across sectors. And we had an interesting announcement a couple of weeks ago with the Canadian government. They announced a $2.4 billion investment to accelerate AI adoption in Canada, which is really important news because I'm sure you're aware, Jeremy, we have some industry sectors that are lagging in digitalization and AI. One of those important sectors in Canada is manufacturing, and at 10% of our GDP, and a lot of exports to the United States and around the world, ensuring that we're accelerating and bringing these sectors up to par and to be able to compete globally with other organizations is really, really important. And it does really come down to what we're talking about here, which is industry sectors, the technology sector, the government working together. So I'd really like to, if you can, share some of your global insight in terms of what you've seen in countries around the world where AI has been leveraged and harnessed to successfully drive industry transformation, and what some of those critical aspects to getting AI transformation right is all about.
Yeah. So a lot of the large manufacturers were among the first to use machine learning. And, you can debate, when do we call it machine learning? When do we call it AI and these elements? But a lot of large companies have been doing this for a while. And so those that have been using it have actually been able to gain an outsized advantage. But you can't just put AI on top of whatever you're doing today. There are some fundamental pieces that you have to get right before you launch that. And we've run a program now for several years called Advanced Manufacturing Lighthouses. Globally, we've identified over 150 kind of lighthouse examples of companies using digital technologies to improve productivity, agility, sustainability, resource utilization, and so on. And we've gotten a lot of good lessons from that cohort of what works and what doesn't. And you can find the examples and also the impact these have had on our website, and we'll include these in the show notes. So what we saw there is that if you just try and stick digital and you don't rethink the underlying processes, it's pretty hard. And you see a lot of projects that get kicked off and they ultimately fail because the foundation hadn't actually been put in place to fully utilize or develop these technologies. A couple things I think I'd call out specifically that come into play there. One is just having a data strategy, right? Understanding where your data sits, who holds it, what's your governance.
Okay, so he's promoting WEF again. We're just going to share something with you. Because you talked about, it's called the Global, I'll show you, it's the Global Lighthouse Network, but I'll just get onto the WEF page. World, and this is October 8th, 2024. World Economic Forum recognizes, see, it's after people knew that Vance was going to win. This is very interesting. Anyway, this very interesting, the day and time this is coming out. World Economic Forum recognizes leading companies transforming global manufacturing with AI innovation. The World Economic Forum welcomes 22 new members of the Global Lighthouse Network, a community of 172 industry leaders pioneering the use of cutting-edge fourth industrial revolution technologies in manufacturing. 19 sites received designations as Fourth Industrial Revolution lighthouses for achieving step change impact in performance through technology-enabled transformation. 3 select sites are designated as sustainability lighthouses for their use of advanced technologies to reduce their environmental impact. Learn more about the Global Lighthouse Network here. I will open a new, but before I do, Geneva, Switzerland, 8 October 2024. That's what they, more people, amid global supply chain disruptions, but not a global, technological advances and growing environmental pressures that you guys are creating, geoengineering, weather modification, cloud seeding, HARP-like technologies, dews, arson. Global productions have become critical to fuel much needed productivity gains. The growing Global Lighthouse Network and its diverse members demonstrate how to harness artificial intelligence, AI, and other advanced technologies in tackling these challenges where others have struggled to do so. future-proofing the industry by enhancing agility, resilience, and environmental responsibility. It's 10 countries: China, the Czech Republic, Germany, India, Mexico, Singapore, Sweden, and Turkey, and Canada and the US. So, and multiple others. Anyway. Lighthouses are breaking through the AI hype and raising the bar for digital transformations, said Kiva Allgood, head of the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Supply Chains, World Economic Forum. Its tangible impact often falls short of expectations. However, the latest Global Lighthouse Network cohort is defying this narrative using AI to achieve step change impact. They are also revolutionizing traditional operations, making roles more engaging and collaborative through advanced technology applications. Just going through more sustainability lighthouses. The 3 sustainability lighthouses are Foxconn Industrial Internet, Shenzhen People's Republic of China, Hefei Medea Washing Machine Co. Limited, Hefei People's Republic of China. I'm probably not saying this correctly, but Qingdao Factory, Qingdao Brewery Company Limited, Qingdao People's Republic of China, beer brewing, high energy and carbon intensive. Energy, recycling, track carbon footprint, and okay. You've got the latest cohort of factory lighthouses provides a blueprint for accelerated deployment of AI solutions that bolster productivity, enhance problem-solving capabilities, and foster innovation. The new factory lighthouses are, and yes, this is one of the big reasons why I friggin' wanted to show you this, is because AstraZeneca, top and number 1 and 2 on the list. Coca-Cola, Singapore, Beko dishwasher plant, Ankara, Turkey. Are they actually selling dishwashers? I'm just kidding. Continental Automotive, Czechia. Vehicles. F. Hoffman, La Roche Limited in Basel, Switzerland. Roche Basel Drug Substance Site, a key player in the company's goal to launch 20 new transformative medicines by 2030. Produce a wide range of treatments, including chemically synthesized small molecules. To enhance efficiency, the site deployed digital and AI solutions that cut yield variability by 60%, have technology transfer time, and reduce scope 1 and 2 emissions by 31%. Foxconn Industrial Internet Vietnam overcame initial challenges such as global expansion for supply chain resilience. Nutritious dairy products. Like raw milk, I doubt it. Should be. It's more healthy. Large wind turbine blades. Not effective use of harnessing energy. Causes more pollution, and people are burying them, and they don't have a long shelf life. They murder a lot of species, especially eagles, larger birds. It's a sin. And also when they're in the water too, they're impacting whales, other species as well in the water, but they're having to move further away, and they do have lungs. They do need to go up for air every once in a while. And so they're having to go further out and because of the vibration and the irritation and and because they're in their way of these windmills that are in the water and further down. And so they're drowning even. And their migration patterns are being impacted. It's just so friggin' ridiculous what we're doing to the world right now. And it's not us. Like I'm naming these people right now. Like we're doing it. We're like implementing all of these friggin' plans. We're advancing these companies. We're still shredding the trees on our own land, our own protected lands, even like the heritage site behind my house. We're still doing that. We're still selling products that we know are harmful to all of us, but especially our children. We know that there's weather modification, geoengineering, weather modification, geoengineering, and cloud seeding going on. That's also impacting us. They know that the fluoride in the water is a neurotoxin. There's so much. Anyway, I am rambling, and so I'm going to get on to Whitney Webb. Because I'm done with this guy speaking. It's terrifying.
Well, the World Economic
This was 11 months ago. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, I'm so too. Oh. I am sorry. It when I clicked the button, it didn't go onto the screen. I should have known that. Okay, so here we go. Posted 11 months ago by Redacted. This is Whitney Webb. I've shared a bunch of stuff from her. She's incredible.
That we are going to see a massive cyber attack hitting before the year 2025, pointing out, in great detail, like this is going to happen, so you better be prepared for it. Why are they saying this, and who are they going to try to point the finger at?
Right. So this was said at the WEF annual meeting earlier this year in January by the WEF managing director, Jergen. And Jergen, as well as the WEF itself, has been involved in a series of simulations for several years now that I'm sure a lot of people in your audience are familiar with, called.
So for the record, I haven't watched this video yet. This is a reaction video.
Cyber Polygon.
So I might stop it a lot to do my own research.
Which has been directly affiliated with Russia's government, as well as some of Russia's biggest banks and some of the biggest commercial banks in the world, and also backed by a lot of U.S. federal agencies, which is ironic when you consider, all about alleged Russian hacks over the years. They're very willing, under the guise of the WEF, to collaborate with the, supposed hackers responsible for everything bad, for several years ago. So that's quite revealing. But aside from Cyber Polygon, there's a lot that the WEF seeks to accomplish as it relates to the cyber realm. And they've been collaborating in a lot of ways with these same big banks and also American intelligence agencies in unprecedented ways that has not really gotten any coverage over the past several years. And a lot of this is housed within a public-private partnership the WEF manages called the World Economic Forum Partnership Against Cybercrime. And this particular organization, back a few years ago, gamed out with the Carnegie Endowment, along with the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, the European Central Bank, so some of the biggest central banks in the world, as well as some of the biggest commercial banks in the world, like Bank of America and JP Morgan, how essentially the U.S. financial system was due to be the victim of a massive cyber attack. And if you're familiar with how things have been going in the U.S. financial or banking system recently, things are not in a very good state at all. And regardless of if there would be or will be a cyber attack in the near future, the banking and financial system in the United
States. The American dollar is on the brink of collapse. It might turn around with Trump. I have no idea. But because of investments and assets into companies that are going to further restrict and control us internationally. So that's not exciting. But again, the economy might thrive on that. But where was I going with this? Sorry.
United States is in deep doo-doo, right? So if you're the big banks and the intelligence agencies, you want to avoid.
Oh, yes. So the American dollar is not doing great right now, and there are people that are doing things with the stock market and amongst other things that they're of concern. And again, even with the friggin' like the debt, oh my God, the deficit that you guys are running and still printing money, it's just ridiculous how things are being managed. Oh my God, just like here in Canada, Chrystia Freelance, she's also like the finance minister or whatever you want to call it, and did the absolute worst job in the history of the world on the Canadian friggin' economy and what she was doing. Oh my God, especially through COVID, like it was a shit show. Like I was emailing her with data to just be like, stop, and like no responses, no answers. But we're propping up the American dollar right now, Canada, which is why our dollar is doing really poorly. It's like $1.40 for every American dollar, and Australia and UK, like they're the money is being like inflated in order to help the US. Okay, because there's a lot of like exchange that we do with them with like currency wise, and it's like, and so we can't sustain that. We can't afford to. And yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Happened after the 2008 economic
and
crisis.
I've talked about this as well, but even with BRICS, like them removing the American currency for international oil exchange as well, that is a huge significant impact on the US, and they're looking at having their own currency for that exchange, and not the American dollar.
Where there was unprecedented anger at Wall Street because the whole hope and change Obama psyop essentially is probably not going to work again. So how do you allow that collapse to happen? Because it has to happen in such a way that the banks and the government are essentially blameless. Well, have a cyber attack happen, and you can literally blame any nation state or group for that hack. And we know this because of what WikiLeaks published right before Julian Assange was completely silenced and then later arrested and dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy in London, Vault 7, which revealed things like the Umbridge program, among other things, that U.S. intelligence and other intelligence agencies that are affiliated with this WEF partnership against cybercrime have the ability to place the fingerprints of any nation state actor they wish, including Russia, China, Iran, and really North Korea, any other group as well, not just nation states, put their fingerprints in a hack they actually commit themselves. And this is very significant because this offers, these intelligence agencies unprecedented ability to have to conduct false flag operations in the cyber realm. And this group specifically has a lot of solutions aside from, things with the banking system that they cannot really justify implementing unless there is some sort of large cyber attack. So what does the WEF partnership against cybercrime want? They're very open that they want a regulated internet, and they're essentially seeking a policy that was efforts were made to implement during the Obama administration in the US. They called it a driver's license for the internet. So essentially what this public-private partnership that the WEF is pushing for is for every person's access to the internet to be tied to a digital ID or a government-issued ID, but presumably a digital ID just because of where government-issued ID programs are all going essentially around the world. And the goal of that, of course, if your ID is linked to your internet access.
So even with government ID is what she's saying. It also interests me that there's such a push, and I agree that there should be, for voting purposes, there should be voter ID. But now do I think, like, should it be government issued? Does that make it legitimate? Like, could I get a photo, like a valid photo ID that would be accepted for voting now, right? If it's going to be linked to this, which it will be. And so it's kind of fun to think that we've been now urging for there to be and there should be honest elections. Absolutely. I'm not refuting that. But it's interesting that now people are like begging for it. Like, we want there to be government issued photo ID for every single election period. And yeah, so sometimes we like, it's the Hegelian dialect is I want to say about that. And like even the solution that is provided possibly could be not the good one, even if we're excited for it. In fact, it would be better if we were excited for it. It's very interesting. There's so many different psyops going on that impact the world.
this. Intelligence agencies know exactly what media you are consuming in terms of, what you read and also what you post online. And that has been the goal for a very, very long time. So people aren't necessarily going to consent to that unless they are made to believe that anonymity and privacy online are dangerous. So how exactly can you convince people that that needs to happen? Well, you have some sort of event where anonymous hackers do something online that causes major disruption globally, and then the consent can be manufactured through fear and panic, as is often done, that anonymity and privacy needs to be eliminated, that we need to know exactly who is doing what online to prevent a calamity of that scale from ever happening again. And this is the exact solution that these guys have been cooking for a very long time. And the intelligence agencies involved are Israeli intelligence, British intelligence, and then the U.S. Secret Service, FBI, and Department of Justice. And you have several of the biggest banks in the country, like Bank of America, involved directly with this group, as well as major U.S. tech companies like Microsoft and Amazon partnered with all of this. And this is exactly what they're seeking, and they have all the tools to allow something like this to happen. And when you have the fact that some of these actors want a war where the U.S., for example, goes to war with Iran, among other things, and they have the ability to attribute cyber attacks of any scale to any entity at all. And this is a big problem, because when these alleged hacks take place, whether it's blamed on Russia, Iran, or China, the headline will blame these countries. But if you actually read the article itself, they don't actually have the evidence to make that case. They say, we believe it's this country, or that it's a group affiliated with this country. And their reasoning ranges from, they'll say things like, we have medium probability that it's, they're tied to Iran, and, all these, phrases that show that they don't actually have evidence. And then there's an effort to manufacture consent, potentially for military action based on all of this stuff. So it's definitely very alarming, and people should be paying attention to it when you consider that you have the biggest banks involved, the biggest intelligence agencies, and some of the biggest tech companies in the world. And another thing that this WEF group is seeking is for banking regulators and intelligence agencies to essentially fuse their operations under the guise of cybersecurity. And the more you think about that, the more insane it is. I mean, it's just an insane policy.
Yeah, bringing it together under one umbrella. And of course, we even heard Nikki Haley, who's certainly the neocons absolutely love Nikki Haley right now, pushing her big time. She, over the past couple of weeks, has called for this lack of anonymity on the web, wants everyone to be registered as you're using the internet, right?
Yeah, Hillary Clinton too.
Yeah. And so have people, media personalities like Jordan Peterson, for example, has pushed for this same end of anonymity online. Right. And you also have people like Elon Musk, who bought Twitter, why he was buying Twitter, saying that we have to verify all humans and essentially, allegedly to control the bot issue on Twitter. But there's this broad push essentially everywhere you look, from the power elite to end online anonymity. And people are obviously resisting that because it changes the nature of the internet and supercharges the surveillance capabilities already built into it. Yeah. To a hugely significant degree. And it's a bigger problem when you consider that the Department of Justice specifically has a pre-crime program that they've been operating since the Trump administration called DEEP, where people have literally been arrested for things they've posted on social media. Someone was even killed, I think, a few months ago for Facebook posts he made about Joe Biden, and then was swatted and shot in the street in front of his house for posts he made on social media. Tying all of this to your government ID, considering, all of those factors as it relates to U.S. law enforcement and the Department of Justice, which again is partnered with all of these things, is an extremely awful idea. And the idea that, and the fact that you have all these financial services entities involved at the same time, there's this push for digital ID, not just for the internet, but to tie your digital ID to your banking through central bank digital currencies or heavily regulated stable coins and deposit tokens. I mean, programmable money. I mean, the implications here are huge.
Yeah, the programmable money. So they want to have this like extreme Marxist, socialist, communist authoritarian regime internationally. The WEF I'm talking about. This is what they friggin' want, and the UN at the high ups, and Larry Fink types and Bill Gates types. And so they want to have it where, and they're talking about this. I think even Elon Musk has talked about this as well, like universal, like a universal salary, I guess, or money that's deposited directly into your bank digitally. And so your currency that you're getting would be 100% from the government. It wouldn't be much to make it where you could get out of your situation, at least not easily. And if you didn't behave or do what they wanted you to do or say what they wanted you to say, then they can penalize you by not giving you money or giving you less money. Like even with like your carbon emissions, like your impact on the environment, right? You can get penalized for everything you do, right? And it can be financially. And it's one of the biggest stressors in relationships, I believe, still is financial stress. And so even in that aspect, it's just, there's just a lot of concerns and red flags regarding this. And I just can't believe that a large majority of our cabinet members are actively enabling this.
And there's obviously a lot of resistance from certain quarters of the US population and elsewhere against the digital ID push and the CBDC push. But have the internet go down for X amount of time because of some massive cyber attack. And they bring it back and say, oh, well, we have to know who you are. And now the only way to get online is to use our digital ID. They're going to get the kind of fast, rapid onboarding and mass adoption that they are seeking for those programs.
Wow. Now, you believe that this cyber attack is a false flag operation. Is it your concern that Israel would want the United States to attack Iran first, that they wouldn't be able to do this? What does your reporting show on that side of it?
So it's not really just my reporting, it's reporting from mainstream media outlets and also things that Mossad directors have openly said in interviews is that for the past 20 years, they have almost.
Just keep in mind, this was like almost a year ago.
Mossad has had almost unlimited funding and energy directed towards Iran regime change policy. And that a key component of that, according to former Mossad director Mayor Dagan, among others, is getting the U.S. to strike Iran first. And there's been a push for a long time from, the neocon sectors within the United States to have the U.S. preemptively strike Iran, among other things. And you had pushes coming from some of the biggest donors to the GOP. For example, Sheldon Adelson, when he was still alive, the biggest donor to the Republican Party and also to Trump, was also pushing for preemptive military action against Iran. He isn't necessarily around anymore, but that type of policy idea has been floated for a very long time. And after the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, the IRGC general, who was very famous, there was rhetoric coming from Mike Pompeo when he was CIA director, and also Trump, that if Iran launched any sort of retaliation, including a cyber attack, they would respond with military action to Iran. So there has been a lot of fear-mongering about exactly this. And of course, it's important to keep in mind that next year, the exact year when the WEF managing director has predicted this attack is going to take place, is an election year in the United States.
Right.
And a lot of the same rhetoric about some imminent cyber attack, whether from Iran, Russia, and or China, was being utilized to a significant degree in the 2020 election as well. And you actually had what I've argued is an Israeli intelligence front company, a cybersecurity company called Cyber Reason, was gaming out and conducting simulations with DHS and some of our top intelligence agencies, how hackers could disrupt the 2020 election, have the election canceled and martial law declared, exactly what hackers would need to do for those conditions to be met. So there is a lot of stuff going on in the cyber realm that not enough people are paying attention to. And the most concerning thing about this, I would argue, besides the WEF warnings, is that you have a series of entities, many of which are tied to foreign intelligence, sitting on the most critical infrastructure systems in the United States, have access to those systems, and other groups have given access to those systems to people that haven't even been vetted by our own government. It's madness.
And is that tied to this CTIL files, which journalist Michael Schellenberger released earlier this week? We covered it extensively here on the show yesterday. The revelations that these CTIL files stand for Cyber Threat Intelligence League. And he claims that these revelations are like worse than the Twitter files, worse than Facebook, and that basically it's a global plan for censorship. According to these documents, the United States and UK military contractors. But I think, is that all tied to this? And I think you believe there's a huge piece missing from the reporting from Michael Schellenberger. It's almost like they conveniently left out one major piece of this story. Can you enlighten our audience as to what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote about the CTI League in August of 2020 because of this was before they really even got into the misinformation games. So they were founded in March 2020, and their main founder and the public face of the organization for years is an Israeli intelligence operative called Ohad Zaydenberg, and who also has been attributed numerous times in U.S. mainstream media reports as blaming various cyber attacks on Iran while working for a cybersecurity company tied to the Israeli government called Clear Sky. But the CTI League wasn't created. Its initial mission was not related to targeting alleged misinformation at all. It was alleged volunteering to protect the critical infrastructure of U.S. hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and health insurance companies, and other corporations in the United States pro bono for free. It's very odd that you would have a group right as a crisis hits, right? The COVID-19 crisis starts, and you have this company run by a former intelligence agency is still collaborating with intelligence, foreign, by the way, not American, offering to protect critical American health infrastructure for free. People like this do not work for free. And the other people that co-founded this group with him.
Well, so an Israeli intelligence guy forms this company as the head of this company and says, we're going to take care of American hospitals, dams, water infrastructure.
Dams come later.
Oh, okay.
Dams come later, but it was first health infrastructure. And they partnered with CISA, which is the independent agency operating under DHS, that's supposed to protect critical infrastructure, including election infrastructure, but also things like water systems, the power grid, all sorts of things like that, as well as hospitals. And the CTI League, created by Zaydenberg, partners with them directly to protect all of this critical infrastructure. Misinformation, what Schellenberger and Taibbi have covered, is the side gig of the CTI League. Their main thing is to get on all these critical infrastructure systems, allegedly to protect them, but no one knows who works for the CTI League really, because in order to join it and get access to all of these systems, you don't have to be vetted by CISA or the US federal government. You have to be vetted by Ohad Zaydenberg and the other co-founders who play a much more minor role than him in the organization, who are affiliated with either Microsoft or a U.S. government contractor called Okta. So you have these guys deciding who gets access to these systems and who doesn't. But anyone could get through that, essentially. It's extremely reckless. And beyond that, it's not just hospitals anymore. As you mentioned, it's expand to dams, it's expand to water systems, and also nuclear reactors in the United States. So you have a foreign intelligence founded or nonprofit being offered access to all of these critical systems in the United States. It's insane. And it's not really the only company that's like this. So the other company I mentioned earlier, Cyber Reason, that did these simulations about election doomsday with DHS and the FBI and whatnot. They have access to some of the most critical infrastructure of the U.S. military and a backdoor to all of it, essentially. And it's not run by American citizens.
How is this being allowed? How is this being allowed? And we know the deep connections between Israel and the United States, and we know the Israel lobby in the United States, but this goes deep. Why do you think it's Why would Michael Schellenberger leave out that part of the story? It sounds to me like a limited hangout. I mean, I know that your website is called, right? Like, I mean, this is like, the distraction over here. Let's just focus on misinformation. But this other massive piece of the story is that they have access to American infrastructure. Foreign governments have access to American infrastructure. Israeli government has access to American infrastructure.
Well, it's not just the Israelis either, because again, we don't know who was given access through the CTI League to these systems. Any nationality.
So I'm just going to get into it. I've talked about Lior Div before, and he is getting replaced by the head of, who used to work for SoftBank, which is a major funder for cyber reason, and Aaron Gunn or something like that, but don't quote me on that. Let me see here. But anyway, so Lior served in Unit 8200 of the Israeli Intelligence Corps as a commander of a cybersecurity team, where he received a Medal of Honor for his excellent achievements. Prior to co-founding Cybereason, Lieber founded a cybersecurity service company that provided services to Israeli government agencies. And so, yeah, he's cybersecurity tech founder and CEO, as well as former nation-state hacker. He is an internationally renowned expert in offensive and defensive cybersecurity, hacking operations, forensics, reverse engineering, malware analysis, cryptography and evasion. And anyways, I'm just going back here. Eric Gann, sorry, not Aaron Gann, it's Eric Gann from Software. Again, banking systems. Let me see, SoftBank. Founder. So Japan, headquartered in Minato City, Tokyo, Japan. Owner is Masayoshi Son. Founded in 81 in Tokyo, Japan. SoftBank. Okay, so that's one of the contributors to Cyber Reason.
Could happen.
So
we have no idea because they're not open about. Yeah, it's an extremely reckless policy. It's worth pointing out too that the head of CISA that oversaw this partnership with CTI League is an ex head of cybersecurity at Microsoft, and you have these Microsoft affiliations with some of the other co-founders, and of course Microsoft being arguably heavily compromised by Israeli intelligence, by Jeffrey Epstein and Maxwell. I've done a lot of reporting on that with Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters being heavily involved with Microsoft through some of their companies. And then Jeffrey Epstein going on Microsoft Russia conferences, being very involved, of course, with Bill Gates, and also the chief technology officer of Microsoft for many years, Nathan Myhrvold. Just totally unreal. So, what's going on here with CTI League I think is very significant, and I'm very disappointed that, I would like to give Schellenberger the benefit of the doubt and just hope he was not aware of what the CTI League does beyond misinformation. But if you go to the CTI League website, it's very obvious that they do a lot more beyond, the misinformation side of things, that their main focus is this alleged pro bono protection of critical American infrastructure. And what's also significant about this happening in the COVID era is that just as CTI League partnership with CISA, the HHS in the US cut hospital budgets that were supposed to help pay for their cybersecurity and IT maintenance. So at the same time that all this COVID stuff is going on, they don't have people protecting their IT systems. And then this group comes along and offers their services for free. So a lot of hospitals maybe that wouldn't have necessarily taken that offer took it because, government policy made it essentially a necessity for them to do so. And also in the pharma world, they ended up partnering, with Pfizer, with Merck, and some of the names there as well. So this is not just the corporate. This is not just like the public sector that they're protecting from cybersecurity. So, given what's been revealed with the CTI League as it relates to censorship and their malfeasance there, why would they not practice similar malfeasance with their alleged protection of critical systems in the United States?
I was going to say, to bring it all back to the World Economic Forum. So if you launch this cyber attack, or you hear, oh, there's a cyber attack coming, I mean, it's like the perfect cover. You've literally got the assets in place to turn off critical infrastructure with your back end team that you've already put together, and then blame it on Iran, right? I mean, is that the plan here? And then we launch an attack against Iran?
Ohad Zaidenberg's whole career has been focused on Iran and cyber attacks. And he's just been focused on Iran his entire career within Israeli intelligence. And now after he formally left and is working for this group affiliated with, Israeli government-owned entities and other intelligence operatives. And a lot of his more recent attributions of cyber attacks to Iran have no evidence. He says things like, this group acts like another Iranian cyber group used to act, therefore it must be Iranian, and doesn't provide any more detail than that. I mean, are we going to get roped into a war over something that's so devoid of any actual evidence? But unfortunately, mainstream media reporting about cyber attacks in general, regardless of whether it's attributed to Iran or another nation, very rarely have any actual tangible evidence to make that claim. And then even if they did, there's this whole factor of Vault 7 as revealed by WikiLeaks, and that you can frame any country or any group for a cyber attack. And as is often the case when these crises happen, there is no investigation until after the fact. And often investigations of like the 9/11 Commission, for example, is heavily compromised. So who knows what will happen there, but it's obviously very concerning. And as far as the World Economic Forum is related, that public-private partnership I was talking about earlier, the Partnership Against Cybercrime, is led by a career Israeli spy named Tal Goldstein, who developed this policy while Netanyahu, who's still prime minister, was prime minister back then in 2012, that operations that Mossad used to conduct in-house are now going to be conducted by private companies, particularly in the realm of cybersecurity. And that is when these groups, including Ohad Zaidenberg's Clear Sky and Cyber Reason, were created. And a lot of them with people with continuing affiliations to Israeli intelligence. And when you consider, again, that it's a directly known and admitted policy of Israeli intelligence to get the U.S. to strike Iran first at the time that the Israel security state determines that it's time to begin open hostilities and armed hostilities with Iran, which seems quite soon, given the conflict in Gaza and how that's escalated and likely to escalate into a regional war. They have wanted for decades the U.S. to strike Iran first. And how will they do that? I'm not saying they're definitely going to do it, but the fact that we're giving that exact government and people linked to that exact government access to our critical systems and all the means to do that is not a good idea.
Right. Yeah. You don't need to, it's Occam's razor, right? It's the simplest explanation for what's going to happen. And I hope that by, having you on here and exposing this, talking about, we've been warning from the very beginning of what happened on October 7th, watch out for false flags, watch out for us being dragged into a regional war, watch out for us being dragged into a war with Iran. We have a long history in the United States of false flag operations, going back to the Spanish-American War and before. So this is not something new that the United States would pull off here, in coordination with the Israeli government. Whitney Webb, I know you've been working very
USS Liberty. Yeah, that was very interesting. I do want to share more about the lighthouses, just things that stick out to me. The Global Lighthouse Network is comprised of 172 lighthouses. That is also something that sticks out because I think back to 9/11 and how it was towers 1, 2, and 7 that went down by possibly DEWs, some kind of like a high radiation, like laser technology, and controlled demolitions, etc. And there were training events happening. I covered 9/11, but anyway, so buildings 1, 2, and 7. And so in certain gematria groups, they took a look at that and they say we need to look more into this because it seems like the universal symbols or numbering systems are at play here. So these are the areas in which they are operating. And this is also in Canada, so like that's also fake news. Lighthouses per region. Yeah. AstraZeneca, Beko, Continentals, Foxconn. I've already mentioned this. GE Healthcare, Hayer, Medea, Coca-Cola, DHL Supply Chain, Johnson & Johnson, K-Water, I just want to say it, Siemens, it's Simons. Anyway, I'm so mature sometimes. Okay, look at this. Danone, Lenovo, Procter & Gamble, again, more Coca-Cola, Western Digital, more Johnson & Johnson, LG Electronics. Again, these are products that are very commonly used in Canada and the US and other first world countries. Yeah. Just see, look at this. Bayer. Anyway, I got so much more to talk about, but I want to share right from the horse's mouth. If I can find the video. Is that it? Nope. I'm going to shut that down. There we go. Bear with me. My bit shoot. I'm having issues. Oh, here we go. Okay.
Would be seen
a new crisis, a crisis which dwarfs in terms of societal and economic impacts COVID-19, for which we shut down the entire economy and locked people in their homes. What could possibly be more socially and economically impactful than that? Let's talk about it. I'm Christian, and this is the Ice Age Farmer broadcast.
I believe that there will be another crisis. It will be
Here we go, Jeremy Jergens. Oh, Canada.
more significant. And, we need to actually start preparing for that now. When we do see this next crisis, it will be faster than what we've seen with COVID. The exponential growth rate will climb, be much steeper.
Sorry.
Will be another crisis. It will be more significant.
Let's talk about it. I'm Christian,
Sorry,
and this
I'm
is
just gonna back
the
up.
Ice Age Farmer broadcast.
I believe that there will be another crisis. It will be more significant.
Okay.
And, we need to actually start preparing for that now. When we do see this next crisis, it will be faster than what we've seen with COVID. The exponential growth rate will climb, be much steeper. The impact will be greater. And as a result, the economic and social implications will be even more significant.
He's a mind
Even
reader.
more
Sorry, he's a
significant.
fortune
What
teller.
is this next crisis that we just heard Jeremy Jergens, Harvard-educated managing director of the World Economic Forum, describing? Well, now let's hear from Klaus Schwab himself.
we all know, but still pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack. To use the COVID-19 crisis as a timely opportunity to reflect on the lessons the cybersecurity community can draw and improve our preparedness for a potential cyber pandemic.
Yes, a cyber pandemic. And before we even talk about what that is, I just want to again appreciate that we just heard two leaders of the World Economic Forum promise that we are going to have a new crisis soon that dwarfs COVID, which has already spelled the end of the world as we know it. So this is something severe, and we need to take notice. This is much bigger than the Project for a New American Century, anticipating a new Pearl Harbor, or the Event 201 expecting a pandemic, or even the food chain reaction game describing the food shortages we're seeing now after a pandemic. Each of these events involved lots of multinational companies coming together for a tabletop exercise, outlining the changes they wished to implement anyway, their agenda. And then, when these crises occur, seizing the opportunity to execute on those agendas. That's exactly what's happening here. So the whole premise here, you can see it, look, it's the same language template even. Quote, like the pandemic, cybercrime does not respect borders or ideologies. No one organization can fight it alone.
Yeah, so imagine there's some kind of like a cyber attack, pandemic that happened. In order for that to happen, we would all have to be digitally connected, i.e. the whole WEF, AI, Cyber Reason, Palantir, et cetera, and the that push. It's going to. They want it to impact the most amount of people. I think I know this sounds insane. I know it does, but even with where these were staged out of these tabletop exercises and simulations, it was in places like Johns Hopkins University, like I've shared before, like tabletop. Pandemic 201 or Event 201, I mean, and CladeX and countless others, and places like Cambridge, which has already been in the courts for like the data mining and the behavioral stuff they were doing, these literally experimenting on societies and impacting even things like elections in certain areas based on social media. And so like psychological operations in Johns Hopkins University and in Cambridge, known for it, and this is where they're being run out of. And like I said, it was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and people like them within these friggin' groups. It's all connected. It's wild. And even with Cambridge, I've said this before, but the King James Version of the Bible, which was allegedly written in 1611. So you got the 6 + 1 is 7, the 711. And it is owned by the crown, so it's owned by King Charles right now, and the monarchy, and all the rights to it and stuff like that. And it's published, and they're made from out of Cambridge, and that's how they're distributed internationally. The King James Version of the Bible, which is in every friggin' hotel basically, or it used to be, and in like a lot of churches purchase them as well. And again, this is what I possibly believe to be also a book that has some psychological operation stuff in there. I think there's a lot of truth in it, but I don't think it's based on facts. And that's why I believe in God, absolutely, a creator, or at least one. I believe that this cosmos was intelligently created by such being. And so, no, I don't believe in the Big Bang Theory or that like we evolved from friggin' algae, any of that stuff. Super long tangent.
That's the exact copy as from the food chain reaction game. Because global problems require global solutions. And that's where these globalists walk in with their altruistic sounding philanthropic objectives and then execute on their agendas. So the whole premise here for why 2020 is now a cybersecurity, why is this all of a sudden happening is because due to COVID, people are forced to work from home. And these people, there's an increased security surface. People don't understand security practice.
And for these these technologies, what are required? Things like lithium and cobalt and et cetera, et cetera. But and what's happening in certain areas that are now being owned and operated or funded by people like BlackRock and stuff like that. Can't make this shit up. Can't make this shit up.
Practices, they're writing down passwords on sticky notes and who knows. And so as a result, everyone is much more vulnerable in 2020. Now, this is true to some extent, but when you look at the players that were coming together for the 2020 Cyber Polygon event, again, it's just like Event 201 and the food chain reaction game. It's a tabletop exercise describing how organizations can react to this new.
Yeah. So I correct me if I'm wrong here, but like this is how I'm thinking about it. If you want to prevent a international pandemic that is directly cyber attack related, then wouldn't you want to be not centralized, like everyone like under the same friggin' umbrella? You'd want there to be decentralized internet access and stuff like that. Like just like you would want there to be less impact, right? So if you're all connected, then you're fucked. But if everyone's not connected, then everyone would be able to respond and react within their own countries, if that makes any sense.
A cybercrime rich environment of the 2020s, of this new normal. One of the chief people involved in this whole cyber polygon effort was Salesforce. Here is their chief trust officer describing how we really need to take cybersecurity differently in the new normal. Here's a report from Accenture doing the same thing. The Threatscape report from Accenture talks about in the 2020s, no one could have anticipated what's going on. We have unprecedented circumstances opening the door to innovative cybercrime. Accenture is a huge consulting company, and they're one of the main participants of this Cyber Polygon event. Let's look at the others. See if you detect a pattern here. AIG, Bank of America, Credit Suisse, Equifax, the credit rating agency, JP Morgan Chase, MasterCard, PayPal, SWIFT, the International Transactions Clearing Network, UBS.
It's a monopoly.
Zurich Insurance Group, a lot of finance and bank players and insurance players there. Also some tech companies like Palo Alto Networks and Salesforce, Amazon Web Services, China Southern Power Grid, Cisco, Cloudflare, HP, Hitachi, Huawei, IBM, Microsoft,
Huawei,
Palantir, a surveillance company straight out of CIA funding, PayPal.
Yep.
And then, of course, BlackRock is in there as well, Deep State Finance Central. So you see, we have representatives from a few different areas here, but it seems as if the cybercrime that's being discussed here definitely is finance heavy. And if we're talking, especially the SWIFT network, if we're talking about threats to international transactions, clearings, that affects all financial transactions right now. And so when we hear the rhetoric from Klausy and Jeremy about this is going to be a crisis which dwarfs everything else, it happens ridiculously quickly, and the impacts are off the scale, everyone is affected. And then Klaus goes on to say the power grid goes down, and the banking institutions are all involved. We can see here, banking will be affected. I don't want to get too far into high-octane speculation, but between the rest.
Hey, Canadians, did you know that you can convert some or all of your RRSP into physical gold and silver?
Don't care.
Rhetoric and the participants, I think it's fair to say there is an event scripted in the near future to take down one or both the power grid and the finance. President Trump already passed in 2017 Executive Order 13800, which sought to harden the our infrastructure.
That was May 11th, 2017. So again, I see that. Anyway, I won't get into it. Yeah.
Especially critical infrastructure.
And that's where I think Vance comes in.
Like the power grid against cyber attacks, almost as if they have some insight into a potential threat along this vector. And then certainly throughout this last 9 months of the pandemic, and it's not just the World Economic Forum that's talking about this. We have been pummeled with predictive programming through the media about the threats to our power grid, particularly. Take a look. Even most recently from the New York Times, it is the same Russians who hacked the election that are now targeting the power grid in our nuclear plants. You can't. I'm just going to let that sit there. I don't think you can make this up at this point. The propaganda is so thick and dense. They're weaving their Russian hacker story right along into this cybersecurity and power grid story. But again, look at the tapestry that has been woven over these last few months. Hackers are targeting the remote workers who keep your lights on. As I said, now that they're having to work remotely and write down passwords willy-nilly, hackers can target them. And this includes utility companies. Cybersecurity, more important than ever due to COVID-19. This was in May. As time goes on, this is from the World Economic Forum, why COVID-19 is making utilities more vulnerable to cyber attacks and what we can do about it. This is back in April. Again, they've been laying the framework, creating that foundation and establishing the predictive programming. From The Hill in August, officials warn of increasing cyber threats to our critical infrastructure during the pandemic, notably the power grid. Moving on, in September, whether facing a cyber attack or a pandemic, preparation is critical. And we're going to explain why cybersecurity is critical for the utility industry now in the era, the new normal of COVID-19. Even most recently, just at the end of October, cybersecurity is going to be a crucial priority in utility companies' agenda as threats continue to grow amid COVID-19. And then just last week, the U.S. power sector has prevented millions of cyber attacks in 2020, which takes 24/7 commitment. Now they're giving you the sense that these attacks are already happening, that it's constantly happening, and it's only by virtue we're hanging by a thread at any moment. This team of incredibly talented people might actually fail, and then we'd be going back to the Stone Age for some amount of time. So I just wanted to mention that the media has been planting this seed as well. And you need to be aware of this, and we need to be discussing this, trying to keep it from happening by virtue of spreading the word about it, if at all possible. But certainly we need to be bracing for it and understanding exactly who the players are behind it, and that this is absolutely a critical part of the larger Great Reset agenda that the World Economic Forum is out there pushing right now. There's a reason Klaus Schwab is running this event, talking about cybersecurity in 2020 suddenly being a new risk to you. And I will leave it here for tonight because there's so much more to unpack that I couldn't possibly do it justice. So let's open the conversation today, and I rely on you to help me look more deeply into this, to help me spread the word. Those of you who are better credentialed, better spoken than I, let's talk about this. This is an important conversation. Thanks for watching, folks. If you want to find this report and all my reports, they are at iceagefarmer.com. If you value this broadcast and the information I'm sharing, please help me keep it running. You can find a few different ways of doing that at iceagefarmer.com/support. Thanks for watching, folks. Strengthen your cybersecurity practices and keep growing lots of abundant food and raising awesome animals.
Yep.
And spread the word. Right. Thanks, folks.
Yep, that was good. And this was from Proletariat 64. Video re-uploaded. No. It was just posted 6 hours ago. There you go. Anyway, that is it for today. So on that note, I will leave it at that. Oh, no, actually, I won't. My goodness. I want to share my Instagram first. Canadian news. There was a, I'll go to it here. Halifax school drops ask that military ditch uniforms for Remembrance Day. So this Halifax school that I named in the previous post doesn't matter anymore because they're getting enough slack already and shame for what they try to do. So they sent a letter out to recommend or urge or ask that military members not wear their uniforms so that people can feel like it could be a more inclusive environment or like a safer environment. I'm obviously paraphrasing not well, but it was along those lines, and so there was obvious pushback because the people should see Canadian men and women in uniform during that time. Like a lot of people do like to, and again, it shows people like who they can talk to and communicate to about like various wars or their own experiences. They can talk about the medals and why they got them and where. And this is something that, you know, there's more people that need to get, oh, I'm not even being shown here. There's more people that need to join the military. And it's a concern right now that like 75% of Canadians now coming in are not even fit or suitable to be in the military at this point for various different reasons, but because of the like the physical fitness, the obesity levels, the chronic illnesses, the allergies, they're just you know, being on various or certain prescription medications, so many different things can exclude that. Even like if you have a previous criminal history, so many different things can impact that. And but we need strong men and women in our military, and so you need people that inspire or motivate people to want to go into those jobs, right? So if they don't know anything about it or what it looks like or anything, and they can't talk to anyone about it because they don't know who's a soldier or not, then it makes it more complicated. And so I'm just going to give an example of when I was in Gaspé this summer. There was I went to the bank just to pay my property tax in my cabin, my hunting cabin, for it. And there was a man in the bank as well, and he had 2 little kids. And the little girl stayed with him in the line, but there was a security truck that parked, and there was 2 security professionals that were wearing their uniforms, wearing their weapons, and they had the guns and everything. And this little boy got so excited, and like he ran over to the window, and he's like staring at these guys, and he's French, and like but he's saying, you know, that like he was just in awe of these guys, right? And he's like talking to his dad, like, look at these guys, Dad, and like talking about the guns and like the uniforms, and like and he was just like in awe, and you know, and so I'm sure that may be something that's going to be of interest to him based on that experience in the future, right? And we need more people in these jobs as well, and we need, yeah. And so I just wanted to say that it can inspire people and or interest the younger generation, because lest we forget essentially as well. It's a good time to also like not get too heavy into wars. You don't want to traumatize any kids, but just give them some level of appreciation for the sacrifices that were made. Anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.